All right. So, hi, my name is Sage. I'm here with Brent Folan, who's traveled 111 countries. And we're just going to talk about not so much each country because that's way too many, but
Yeah,
about
we
how
do that.
how traveling overall has shaped him as a person because everyone experiences it differently. So, go ahead and tell us about yourself a little bit.
Yeah, what's up, guys? Like you said, my name is Brent Folan. I am from the United States, specifically Texas. And yeah, my travel story is pretty wild. Traveling was something, fortunately, we did growing up quite a bit, but mostly in the United States. And it wasn't until senior year of college we went to the Galapagos Islands, and I really caught the travel bug. But it was always one of those things in American culture is you work, you go to school, you study, graduate, you work, and then you work until you retire, and then you travel. And in 2016, I went to the Olympics because I love sports and I love the United States. Took some selfies. They ended up going viral and got some major media coverage, which not only got me sponsored at the Olympics, it also got me sponsored to travel the world for a year. So pretty cool being a paid travel influencer.
And then you also had travel motivation before that, or how did that develop?
Yeah, so no, my main goal was just to have the best trip of my life. I've always wanted to see the world. I think most people around, most people's dream is to travel and see the world, and luckily my dream has come to fruition thanks to those selfies.
How did that develop that you're like you ended up going to 111 countries?
Yeah, I think okay, so when it comes to travel, there's two big factors that prevent people from traveling. First one is time. And a lot of people think traveling is very expensive. It does not have to be. There are cheap ways to travel. And so it's kind of trying to find that time in your life where you have that balance of time and money, especially if you want to do long-term travel. Usually have to quit the job and just go. But yeah, those big two factor, it all kind of aligned for me. Especially getting a sponsorship, it gave me a purpose while I was traveling. But yeah, going to all these countries. Yeah, I want to see it all. I think people are like, I'm very fortunate in everything that I've seen. I have not taken any day for granted. I mean, you're going to get food poisoning when you travel long term. I've been
Yeah.
super sick on the road. Vietnam and Halong Bay was one of the sickest I've ever been. There was not only was it was coming out of me on both ends, and I was in the fetal position on my bed.
Oh
I remember
no.
waking up, and this was like mid-afternoon, and something was dripping from the ceiling. Well, come to find out, someone had clogged the toilet above us. It was literally poop water dripping on my bed. Didn't touch me, thank God. It was just like it was literally a shitty situation.
That's disgusting.
All I had to do was look out the window and be like, something. I'm so grateful to be in this opportunity. So you need to embrace those highs, embrace the lows, and know that it's all part of the journey. I am
Definitely.
realizing that not this is gonna be controversial. Not every country needs to be visited. That's not saying that I don't want to go there, but I'm learning that some of these countries that I've been to, it's only happened a couple times in my travels, but I was very ready to leave by the time my flight was departing. I was ready to go.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I think that's natural. I mean, there's freaking 200, nearly 200 countries out there, I believe. And for me, I can understand because my goal is more focused on culture instead of hitting every country because I know that, first of all, countries can divide more. They can break up, like Yugoslavia, for example. It was
yeah,
kind of all together at one point.
yeah.
And then it's divided now. So there's 200 countries now. And how many will there be in the future after more divisions happen or more countries come together? So that's very impressive that you've done all that, but I can totally understand. I mean, some of them are repetitive and very similar to others. And
Yeah.
so
Like
it's just,
my first 2 years, I like to tell people it was my sampling of the world, right? Like
yeah.
some of these places, I was usually moving. I think the longest I stayed somewhere was like 10 days. Most cities, I was there for 3 to 4 days max, right? It was
That's
54
exhausting.
countries, 6 continents in 1 year, just over a year. I mean, that's cruising. And
Yeah.
so now that I've been on the road for 7 years, the last 5 years has been going back to those places and really diving deep into the spots that I enjoyed or countries that I've researched and heard of. and really spending a lot of time there. And so this new thing that we've been, I mean, it's not happening everywhere, but we're trying to do is however long the visa is, that's how long we stay in the country. And so
Okay.
that's been pretty fun.
Fantastic. Okay. So, I mean, that could end up with you living, I guess, in a place for roughly 3 months max, right?
It depends. Yeah. Well, Mexico, you can get 6 months. You get 180
Yeah, like
days
the
with the
UK.
US passport. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it really case by case basis. But like we did, so COVID was interesting, right? We got stuck in Singapore. Which, I love Singapore, and I don't think it should be skipped. Actually, it should be the country you fly into from the United States to Southeast Asia. It'd be your cheapest place to fly into. During COVID, there was no COVID for like 9 months, which was cool. But we absolutely loved it, and so we stayed not totally by choice, but we were stuck there for a year and a half. And so COVID kind of helped me refocus on what my priorities are with traveling. And that's where I really started diving deep into wildlife photography, especially underwater photography. And so
Oh, yeah.
that's been quite
I
a
love
journey.
your work.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. So it's been cool.
Okay. So I'm curious. You brought up getting food poisoning, and that's getting sick while traveling, I think, is something people either are afraid of or don't predict or
Yeah.
don't prepare for. So
Right.
tell us about, or tell me about how you handle, there's always the mental challenges of traveling, but then there's also the physical challenges, your health and well-being.
Right.
And what have been some challenges you've gone through? How have you dealt with that?
Yeah, so speaking to the long-term travelers, right? A lot of people, especially Europeans, they'll with the gap year, they'll be gone for a year. When it comes to getting sick, it's not a matter of if it's going to happen, it's when, especially in Southeast Asia, most of Asia for that fact, in Africa, like Central America, South America, you will get food poisoning. And so Pepto-Bismol, we have that in the United States, don't have it everywhere else in the world. So charcoal tablets, Imodium. I mean, that's one of those things I always pack because
Yeah.
and as crazy as it is, depending on where you are in the world, sometimes you want to have a toilet roll with you. If you don't have toilet paper, India, shout out to them. Like you shake with your right, you wipe with your left. I don't know
Oh, yeah.
what culture you want to get, but like in India, that's different. So sometimes have that extra toilet paper roll with you because you might need it.
Yeah, definitely. I was actually just in Albania over the summer, and I don't know what happened to me. Part of it was like dehydration. I was just a mess. I ended up in the hospital, and I was just asking the guy. I was like, dude, before you do anything, like, how much is this gonna cost?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I ended up being fine. But yeah, I had to
But how
stock up
cheap
on some
was
stuff.
it compared to what you would have done in the United States?
Very cheap.
Yeah. Guys, travelers insurance, very important to have. Another thing just
Yeah.
to make sure that if something were to happen, you're covered. But
Mhm.
like for me, I've been up in the hospital. We were in Sri Lanka, and I was eating one of the best mango curries I've ever had in my life.
Mhm.
And then later that night, it felt like someone had stabbed me in the kidney. I was like, "Oh,
Oh,
I'll be fine." We had a train ride the next day, 6-hour train ride, horrible. I mean, miserable, barely could walk. Come to find out, I had a kidney stone. Horrible, not fun. Would not recommend to anyone. And
yeah.
so ended up spending some time in the emergency room in Sri Lanka, and that was quite the experience, right? Interesting to see the healthcare system there. There were wild stray cats running around. I was the
In the
only
hospital?
Yeah, it was really interesting. I was the only foreigner in there, so I got VIP treatment. I mean, the line was out the door, but they gave me a bed immediately. I had to put a deposit of the equivalent of $40 down, and
Okay.
so got my treatment. There was quite a few things they did. There are a couple scans that they did that in the United States easily would have been like a couple grand.
Mhm.
And I ended up passing the stone while I was there. I think I was in the hospital for like 8 hours. I didn't spend the night, but they asked me, they're like, "Hey, we want you to stay overnight." I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, guys, like I passed the stone. Why do I need to stay here?" They go, "We need to give you your change." My change, because I've already given you $40. I was like, "Just keep it. I'm not spending the night here because you want to give me the change and this office is closed." So healthcare
Wow.
can be so cheap in some of these other countries that that's one thing about the United States. It's a huge business here with healthcare.
Everything's a business in the US, and it kind of breaks my heart. Like it makes me less attracted to my own country because I don't know, in my experience traveling everywhere else, people are more focused on humanity and just being down to earth and connected with one another, supporting one another. I mean, not everywhere. There's bad places, as you know. But in the US, everything is so money focused that it's kind of shallow.
In some aspects, I would agree. I think there are parts of our country where we do rally together, and I think
Yeah,
a big part of our country, a part of our culture here is sports. And
yes.
so when you root for the same team, when you're in a stadium with 100,000 people, like it's special. So like, is it focusing on humanity? No, it's like rooting for 18 to 22-year-olds, or these multimillionaires on a sport, whatever sport on whatever sports field. But that is
Yeah.
a wild part of our culture as well. That for those foreigners that want to come to the United States, you have to see a professional sport while you're here. It's mandatory. It's next
There's
level.
definitely like a sense of unity that goes in there.
Oh, it's wild. Well, especially like if you go to college, right?
Mhm.
You represent that college for the rest of your life. You are forever associated with that college. And so my wife is from Australia. So when I
Mhm.
first met her, I asked her, I was like, "Oh, where'd you go to college?" Right? She went to a college in Melbourne, and I was like, "Oh, what's your mascot?" She's like, "Oh, I don't even know if we had a mascot." Versus in the United States, like we all have these gang signs that we do, and right, you're bleeding your school colors. So
Definitely.
that's always interesting. Just like that was a big eye opening experience for me. That football, aka soccer, is the sport of the world, but the rest of the sports, the United States has those covered for sure.
Definitely. And so your wife, you and she met in Kenya, is that right?
Correct. Yes. Yep.
Okay, so I'm super curious about this topic. How did that develop, and how you guys how did your connection and romance develop, especially with the challenges of traveling?
Mhm.
And how did you manage that?
Yeah. So when we met, I usually don't do tours. I
Mhm.
prefer to explore country on my own pace, and like we connected through couch surfing. So through couch surfing, you meet locals who
Really?
show you like the best experiences ever, right? And
Yeah.
so with Katie, she and I happen to be on the same tour in Africa. Africa is a beast. Africa,
Hmm.
if you want to see multiple countries overland, is it possible to do it on our own? Yes.
Hmm.
Now, would I recommend buying a motorbike and doing it? No. So Katie and I happen to be on the same tour. There's an amazing group of like 25 people. There's a group of 7 of us that became good friends. So we
Hmm.
traveled together for about a month, and then she went back to Australia. I'd kept going, went down all the way to Cape Town, and there was another Aussie in the group, and we were all interested to continue traveling because Katie was on the end of a 6 month trip as well. And as well, I was on a year long trip. Anyways, her travels were supposed to end, my travels were supposed to end, and we're like, let's keep going. So we agreed to do a 3 month trip. I said, meet me in Texas. Haven't seen my family in a while, so come to Texas. We'll do Central America. We did
Hmm.
Central America. It was awesome. It was amazing. And we're both like, I don't think we should end yet. But she had done
Awesome.
South America. So I told her, hey, you need to see this continent because it's amazing. So I left her in Colombia. I flew to Russia for the World Cup just
Hmm.
because, like, why not? Right?
Of
Visa's tough
course.
for Americans to get. And if you bought one FIFA World Cup ticket, which was like $25, you got in the country.
Hmm.
So the beginning of our dating experience, it was either all together for 3 months at a time
Hmm.
or completely on long distance for 3 months at a time. And
Hmm.
so, like, it puts you to the test, right? Like,
Definitely.
you meet so many people traveling, but when you meet the right one, you make it work. And that's what we've done.
Yeah, they're willing to go the long distance.
Yeah.
That's sweet. What are some of the biggest struggles you've had overall, like emotionally, or the best things and like the strongest emotional experiences you've had from traveling? Um, and how have you dealt with them? How have you handled them?
Hmm. The strongest emotional feelings. I, I like to challenge myself, and I like to do like crazy stuff. I like to say I'm not afraid of much. Like I'm still trying to find stuff that really scares me. And
Okay.
so one crazy emotional day, I was in La Paz, Bolivia, and there's this thing called Death Road. And so Death Road, you like cycle down this crazy road for a bit. Like it's one of the deadliest roads on the planet because cars drive off. Like hundreds of people used to die like annually on this road, and now you get to mountain bike down it.
Oh my
And
God.
I was like, yeah, heck yeah. That's one of the reasons why I went to Bolivia. So did that. There were 2 Canadians that were on the tour group with me, and they're like, hey, we're climbing this huge mountain tomorrow. You want to come with us? I was like, well, yeah, let's do it. So for the next 3 days, we climbed this mountain that was 6,088 meters high, which is
Mhm.
like over 19,000 feet, right? And so with zero training, I did not have winter gear because I was jumping the equator for summer, but like physically and emotionally, 100% the toughest thing I've ever done in my life. With each step up that mountain, you literally just you felt like death, right? Like we all
Mm.
got sick, altitude sickness because we literally went up so high so quickly. I mean, the pause itself is already so high, but going through that, it was a mental struggle because the three of us we said we weren't going to go to the top unless all three made it, and so physically and mentally pushing our bodies to the limit. And once you do something like that, you can do anything. I mean, truly,
Mhm.
right? If you set your mind to it, you can accomplish it. So that was still to this day one of the toughest things I've ever done in my life.
That's
But if
fantastic.
you're in Bolivia, I know you're going to South America, hopefully in the near future. Look it
Yeah.
up. Um, that it's called Hawana Potosi, and it is an ass kicker. It's higher than Everest Base Camp. It's
Oh my
higher than
gosh.
Kilimanjaro, and you can climb it for $150 US. So it's like super cheap, but it'll challenge you very, very, very much.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of what we live for sometimes is it's easy to get stuck in routine, but whenever you challenge yourself, it really makes you enjoy the goodness even better.
Yeah.
Have you had points where you want to give up? And how have you dealt with that? Like traveling where you're just like, I'm not really feeling this anymore. And
Fortunately for me, no, not really. Uh,
okay.
now I've been to a couple countries where I was like, I'm ready to get the fuck out of this place. I was over it. I was done with the country. I'd seen what I wanted to see. It was not what I was expecting. Didn't enjoy it, but like I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity and the chance to explore those countries, right?
Yeah.
But
Do you want to
I
share which
was,
ones they were?
oh, it's so controversial, but okay. Like, oh, some of my friends are gonna be so mad. Whatever. The first one was Cuba. I did not enjoy Cuba,
Okay.
and there's a lot of people who have been to Cuba,
Hmm.
and if they loved it, ask them where they went, because
Hmm.
a lot of the Americans that you'll meet most likely stayed on a resort. Okay,
Yeah.
a resort in Cuba is not Cuba. It's
Right.
not. It's
It's just
fake.
the safe zone.
Yes.
Hmm.
The famous photos you see of Havana, right? The colorful cars, downtown, beautiful structures. That's like 1 to 2 square blocks. The rest of the country is really run down. It's a super, super poor country. And I really feel bad for the citizens because it's a very tough situation to be in. Like some of them are only making, if they're having a good month, $15 a month. Like, can you
Holy
imagine
moly.
surviving off of $15 a month? And Castro gave your family a car and an apartment while they gave it to
Mhm.
your grandparents, but your parents and you are still living with your grandparents because you can't afford another place. Like what was tough about Cuba was finding fresh food was difficult. The food scene wasn't as good as I thought it would be. And it was one of the places that I've been to where people would lie to you to get more money,
Mhm.
financial situations, I understand that they're trying to do the best for their families. But
Right.
when I know you're lying to me and I tell you you're lying to me and you continue lying to me,
Yeah.
that gets emotionally taxing, especially when you're there for 2 weeks. It's just like I understood why they were doing it, but it was just not get me wrong. I love negotiating. I think it's fun, but like I don't want to negotiate every single conversation that I have. So
Right.
that was tough.
That's
The
pretty
other
toxic.
one, the other country, we were just there last summer is Tunisia. Um,
Mm.
there were a lot of challenges in Tunisia. I think
Mhm.
Tunisia has a lot of potential as a country, and I hope the best for that country. But in Africa, you haven't been to Africa yet, have you?
No.
There's a saying TIA. This is Africa. Okay, there's no time like when you go to Africa, don't expect to go anywhere at any specific time because it's never going to happen.
Right. It'll always be
Everything's
late.
everything's late, always, 100% guaranteed. And
Mhm.
so we were a little adventurous. We decided, hey, we'll catch a boat from Italy to Tunisia, 22-hour boat ride. Whatever. We've done long bus rides like that. A boat will be, luxury. It was a very unique experience.
Unique.
The boat was we were in the Amalfi Coast, right? Awesome part of Italy. Like, oh, we had the best couch surfing host there. It had the most amazing pizza. Our ferry was supposed to leave at midnight, so we get there at like 10:30 p.m. So almost the middle of the night. We hop in line, or as the rest of the world says, the queue. We get in the queue, and we get to the front, and they're like, "What are you doing here?" I was like, "What do you mean? What are we doing here? We're here to catch the boat. We need to check in." They're like, "Oh, it's been delayed for 10 hours."
Oh
Were
my
you gonna like
God.
email us or call us because like this is the middle of the night? Like, what the hell are we supposed to do? Luckily, our couch surfing host Roberto, you're the man. He let us stay for one more night. But like that was foreshadowing for what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Tunisia is unique because they have like a Tunisia Uber, more or less. It's impossible to find taxis. You're going to be waiting for taxis sometimes like 2 hours just because it's so cheap. Everyone rides them. So after a few days of waiting for taxis for 2 hours, that was very frustrating because there were a few things that we wanted to see. The food scene there is just right? Like I love couscous, and I will give them that. They make an amazing couscous. But do you want your couscous with vegetables? Do you want couscous with fish, or you want it with beef? That's pretty
Mm-hmm.
much the extent of what you can get. Or you can get tuna fish sandwiches, which like, tuna fish sandwiches in 115-degree Fahrenheit, 40 to 45 plus every day for a week. It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
So like super hot. Some of the people weren't the friendliest. Now don't get me wrong, we met some amazingly nice people as well. We had some cool couch surfing
Mm-hmm.
hosts, but it wasn't a country like for me. What makes it or breaks it is a people, and I didn't connect with as many people as hoping. And so
Mm-hmm.
after I think we were there for like 10 days, we were at the airport, and like it was the second time ever I was at the airport, like super excited. We were flying to Malta. I was like, oh, I can't wait to leave. Let's go. Let's get back to the EU. The flight was, we got to the airport like 4 hours early, right? Like I'm stoked to leave. And
Mm-hmm.
we're sitting at the terminal, and they're like, oh, your flight's delayed. Turned into 1 hour. 1 hour turned into 2 hours. 2 hours
Yeah.
turned into 4 hours. Our flight was delayed 12 hours. So I couldn't
Oh
even
my
leave the
God.
country that I wanted to get out of. But again, I'm very grateful that I got to go.
Mm-hmm.
Did skip the island of Jerba, which people rave about. So I guess I should go back to see that. But if people ask me, in my honest opinion, if you have to choose between Morocco and Tunisia for Northern Africa, I would recommend Morocco. Morocco was
Mm-hmm.
mind blowing. So those are the two countries, guys. If you're listening to this, like I still love your countries. I'm not going to be in a rush anytime soon to get back. We can meet somewhere else around the world.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the essence of traveling. And what I love is that you're sharing more about not the touristic experience so much. Like, as you said, people have their safe spot where they stay in countries, but genuinely what it's like, how the culture survives, how they do things. And that's just the reality. Like anything like Mediterranean, expect delays, expect them to be late and not even notify you.
Yeah.
It's just a lot less reliable in other parts of the country
Yeah.
or other countries. And that's kind of just part of the experience. So, when people are expecting, I think that goes into a lot into like the emotional aspect of traveling. As Americans, we usually expect things to be kind of on time. We expect prompt notification and those kinds of luxuries. But a lot of the world doesn't operate that way.
No, exactly. And like and people, so I get reached out almost daily for people who are ready to go travel the world, right? Whether it's a month-long trip or they're going to start a multi-year trip. They always like to ask my opinion, and I'm happy to respond to everyone. If I don't respond, it's because I don't have Wi-Fi. I do message everyone back. And especially for Americans, I think a good place to start is Europe, Western Europe. It's easy, but it's different, right? Like you're going to see different cultures. You are going to hear different languages, but you are going to meet a lot of people who speak English, and you still are going to find a lot of the Western. Now, let me clarify this. This is Western Europe, not Eastern Europe, right? Western Europe, it's planes and trains and buses are going to be on time. Now, if you want to
Yeah.
get a little more, explore a bit more, get a little more out of your comfort zone, Eastern Europe's a great place for that, right? It's going to be very different, but it's going to be significantly cheaper. but you will find less people who speak English,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then, like, if you really want to step out, you want to see something totally different. That's where South America, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it consists most of the same languages, but it is significantly different than what you get in the United States. And then Southeast Asia, very different, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are people that speak English. Tourism's big, but it's really gonna make people step out of their comfort zone because these daily luxuries that we have, you're not gonna find some of the restaurants that you get back home. You're gonna
Right.
need to try street food, and then if you really want to step out of your comfort zone and see like the most crazy, like just really, really out of your comfort zone would be Africa, the Middle East is completely different, right? And so
Definitely.
like that's how I tier things, and it's just like I throw it at them. Hey, however, wherever you want to go, I'll help. You know, it's fun to help you plan, but just know this, mentally prepare that it is different. It is very different from back home.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's the biggest challenge with being mentally prepared is if you are or are not aware of these differences, then some people go into other countries expecting the standard that is met back where they're from. And that's where that anger, frustration, those kinds of feelings
Yeah.
come up is, my bus is late. This happened to me in Italy. I booked two buses back to back,
Hmm.
and I gave them like an hour of wiggle room.
Yeah.
And the one bus showed up 30 minutes late.
Oof.
And then the bus driver kept stopping for smoke breaks when that wasn't recorded in like what he was supposed to do.
Right.
And so finally I like walk up to him. I'm like, are we going to make it at this time? Because I'm supposed to get a connecting bus. And I paid like a good bit for that.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, we're not going to make it on time. So I was like stressed trying to contact the other bus company and tell them like about the whole situation.
Mm.
But I was inexperienced and I didn't realize that I had booked them with two different companies. So I couldn't hold like the first one accountable for making me late. Technically, I couldn't get any kind of a refund because the
They
company
still
wasn't
got you
responsible.
to where you're supposed to go,
He
right?
did. He ended up he stepped on the pedal harder and we
Oh,
got
did you
there.
make it?
We did make it.
Oh, whoa,
Yeah.
that's a miracle. I
But
was
literally
expecting
by
that.
like 3 minutes to spare. So
No way. Yeah.
I
Okay.
was really tense for that ride because I didn't have like accommodation figured out for
Hmm.
where we're stopping. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And like
I luckily,
but it gave you a good story, right? Like I think
yeah.
part of these travel journeys, things are going to go wrong. It's not nothing is
Mhm.
ever perfect, but there's two ways to deal with it. You can be super pissed off, right? And like you've lost all this money. Oh, well, or well, maybe there is some good that came out of it. Like a perfect example,
Yeah.
I was in Amman, Jordan. I had a flight. I was with a couch surfing host. He was moving to Ecuador. We became very good friends. He hired a driver to take me to the airport, spoke no English, and I speak zero Arabic, except for, the word yalla, let's go, yalla, 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 yalla. So this guy, casually, same type of thing, smoking, slowly driving. I'm looking at my watch. He was 30, right? We're already pushing it. That is the only flight in the last 7 years that I've missed. Only one. And it was in the moment I was so pissed because it was like I had to pay $250 extra to buy a new ticket. Like, and so, but
Yeah.
it gave me an extra half day to explore more of Amman, to really enjoy all the hummus that Jordan has. And so, like, that could ruin people, right? I mean, like,
Mhm.
financially, that's a lot of money, $250,
Yeah.
depending on what your budget is. But you just, I'm a positive person. It's always glass half full, right? That
Right.
happened
Right.
for a reason. And then because of that, I was able to meet different people that I wouldn't have crossed paths with otherwise. So like even in those lowest of lows on your travels, it all happens for a reason. See how you can spin it positively and not find yourself in a dark hole, right? So
Definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important, I think it's healthy also to feel the frustration and anger, but obviously you don't
Yes.
want that. Yeah, but you don't want that to affect like your relationship with the people that you're connecting with,
Yeah. And don't let
because
it
those
ruin
are
your
all
trip,
important
right?
connections.
Just don't let it ruin your trip. It's gonna happen.
Hmm.
It's something bad is gonna happen on your travels. But
Absolutely.
be prepared for it. Have that traveler's insurance. Have the Imodium if you get the shits, right? Like make sure you're ready and just prepare for the worst, but expect the best.
Right. And so that actually gets me curious. my big thing when I've traveled is I realize I get so tense with stress.
Yeah.
Like you're supposed to be having fun, but it does get stressful. Especially when you do it the rough style where you're couch surfing and you're trusting all these other people you've never met.
Yeah.
How have you handled your stress? Like for me, I have to really go through the mental thoughts of what is the worst that can happen? How will I handle the situation in the worst that can happen? What are my backup options? And that kind of helps me settle down. What about
Mhm.
you?
I am a very big planner. So Katie and I usually plan 3 to 6 months in advance.
Okay.
We already know where we're going to be. And so when you have those firm dates, it's easier to find couch surfing hosts
Yeah,
because then
definitely.
you have firm days. Like some of these couch surfers, oh, I'll be in this area maybe around this time. Well, that's not fair to a host. You're going to like these people might show up in a 5 to 7 day range. And so dealing with the stress, I used to work in new business development. I used to work in limestone mining, right? I was
Mm-hmm.
in sales. Like that was a high stress situation. I was student body president at TCU. That was a very high stressful situation, right? Making decisions for the student body, blah, blah, blah. Like for me, traveling, it's not super stressful. It's so much fun.
Okay.
Like it's it's truly a blessing. Like I'm so lucky to have been able to travel for so long and to be able to see everything that I've done. Like, are there stressful days? Absolutely. Is it stressful? Like, do you spend 2 to 3 days planning the next 6 months? Oh yeah. But
Mm-hmm.
eventually when you do it for literally years at a time,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes second nature to us. So this
Yeah.
lifestyle is like our normal. And so that's kind of helped with the stress levels and like I don't know, like I don't know. I deal with stress with humor. I laugh. Like there's been some stuff that
That's
you just got to laugh it off. Now, is it tough? Is it tough to do that in the moment? Like if
yes.
someone steals something from you, that sucks. You're not laughing in the moment, but it'll give you a story down the road that you hopefully can look back at and laugh on. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's situation like, do I miss sitting at a desk grinding every day for 5 days a week?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely not. Like scuba diving around the world or climbing mountains or, trekking through the jungle at night to see what creatures I can find. My biggest stress is like, am I going to find the snake species that I want to find here in this country? You know what I mean? Like,
That's
plan.
great.
The more you plan, the lower your stress levels should be
Yeah,
theoretically. Things do go wrong,
ideally.
but
Mm-hmm.
if you plan, it should make life so much easier for you when you're traveling.
Right. I'm only going to counter that by saying I am thankful that I didn't like pre-book every flight and hotel because if you don't know, like, let's say you do what I did in Italy and book things back to back, that can be a disaster financially whenever you miss one flight and it misses
True.
all your
Yes.
other connections. Yeah. So there are some spaces where you need to just kind of go with the flow and figure it out as you go. But in general, things go better when they're planned.
For sure. And just I absolutely agree with you 100%. This is where it comes down to travel style, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're traveling, there's no right way to travel. It's how you travel. It's for me, as long as you're traveling, that's the right way to travel. Now, when I
Mm-hmm.
say we plan for 3 to 6 months out in advance, we're not necessarily booking hotels. We're not booking
Mm-hmm.
anything. We just know, except for flights. Sometimes we're usually
Mm-hmm.
booking flights just because you save a lot of money booking those in
Yeah.
advance. But we'll have the dates of when we're going to be in that region. Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense? So then, like,
Right. Like
but
entering and exiting the
correct,
country kind of thing.
exactly, which like is required in a lot of countries around the world.
Yeah. That's most
But
important.
some people that I've met prefer to be spontaneous and want the flexibility to be wherever they want, whenever they want. Which, if that's your style, go for it. That's not my style.
Mhm.
I like to maximize my dollar. I like to stretch the dollar as far as possible. And
Me
that for
too.
me, that's how I've been able to travel for 7 years and going on year 8, right? It's been able to
Mhm.
make my money to not only work for me in the stock market, but to make it last by planning and getting the cheapest deals possible.
Definitely, absolutely. We're talking about all of the emotions that come with traveling, like stress. And what about grief? Because everyone, I mean, especially if you're traveling long term, it could be some little thing like losing your wallet. that just sets you in the bad mood for a day. So how have you handled that personally? You said you've used humor, which is great, but
Yeah, that's good. That's where I think having a good family, like if you're fortunate enough to have a good family,
yeah,
and like a good friend group, we're so lucky traveling in this day and age because technology lets us stay connected with everyone. It's a
right.
blessing and a curse, right?
Mhm.
But like the way it's so much easier to maintain friendships and like to check in with friends literally all over the world. So having, there's been some tough stuff that my family's gone through, and
Yeah.
I mean, for example, my first year traveling, I was in Cusco, Peru. I was headed to Machu Picchu, and I knew my grandpa was really really sick, and I knew that he
Mhm.
was probably going to pass away within
Mhm.
the next few days. And so when you're traveling, you might miss some of those big life events such as death, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I was fortunate. I was able to do Machu Picchu. I was on the train back to Cusco, and I got the call that he had died. And it's like, oh my gosh, what the heck? So like, that was
Mhm.
pretty wild. Flying home. This was, I think, like 7 months, 6 months into my travels around the world of my first year, and going back and dealing with that. But yeah, I think definitely having if you're close with your family, relying on your family, right? Being able to have people to talk with there, have friends. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm not a super overly religious person, but like
Mhm.
I grew up religious, so having faith helped. Whatever faith you have, cool. If you don't, that's cool too. Whatever. I'm not here to
Mhm.
preach, but yeah, I think just traveling allows you to be distracted as well.
Yeah.
So, but don't use traveling as a way to run away from those issues.
Right.
Is that cool? Does that make sense? Right? Like,
Yeah, because like we were saying, you have to acknowledge those difficult emotions. Every emotion, you have to acknowledge whether when you're feeling really good, when you're feeling really bad.
yeah,
Because if you avoid them, then it just presents itself later in a different way.
correct, exactly. It will catch up with you eventually, no, for sure. So, but it can be a good distraction. But like, there are professionals that you should absolutely talk to if that's something you need. So yeah.
Definitely. I just found a lady on LinkedIn who's like a life coach for digital nomads. So she's
Oh,
super cool.
oh,
Um,
interesting.
Definitely recommend someone like that. That's becoming a growing field because people know that um, more people are working from home, more people are digital nomads, and as amazing as the lifestyle is, you do get lonely sometimes.
But don't let solo travel stop you from traveling, because what I
Yeah.
like to tell people is like, you're as alone as you want to be.
Hmm.
And this just goes for life in general. We're getting like really philosophical here. You're always surrounded by people if you choose to be, right? There's a lot of ways to meet people when you're on the road. But if you're
Hmm.
traveling solo and you want to be alone, you can be.
Hmm.
So I don't like I encourage I think if I could change one thing about the United States, if I became president of the United States, I would make it a requirement for every US citizen to live abroad for 3 months.
I
And
like
I'm
it.
not talking like live abroad in Western Europe, right? Not like in Spain and France. No, I'm talking like maybe Southeast Asia or
Hmm.
even the Middle East or Africa, like really put you out of your comfort zone to make you appreciate what you have.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think the biggest thing that I've taken away from my travels is you really should embrace the differences. And the only way you're going to learn about these differences is by talking to those people around you. Hopefully, you speak the same language. You can still communicate with Google Translate if you don't, but
Mhm.
it's fun. You talked about enjoying these cultures. It's fun to have your beliefs challenged, right? I mean,
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
love talking to Muslims. It's fun to learn about the Muslim faith, and you learn all these religions are so similar. Some of the names,
Mhm.
some of the dates are different, but it's just yeah. There's meet as many people as you can while you travel.
It's true. I think, just like working in a restaurant can really challenge you with the different people and the different ways you're treated.
Yeah,
Putting yourself in a different freaking culture, like third world kind of different, is really going to. I mean, culture shock will be real, but it'll really shape. I mean, I'm living in Croatia, which is like not really that different, but the culture, they, how do I describe them? They still have a rough aspect
hmm
of their behavior, So like I have friends who I've butted heads with, but those differences are kind of what really intrigue me about them at the same time. Even though they can be frustrating, it's intriguing to understand why they have a different attitude and handle things differently. And a
Yeah.
lot of it boils down to their history
Yeah.
and just what they're used to.
Yeah.
If you reflect before you traveled 111 countries, who would you say, like, what kind of a person were you then compared to now with all the
Um,
growth and fun
so
stuff?
personality wise, I don't think my personality has changed that much. I've always kind of been outgoing. Like I've loved meeting people. I've always loved learning people's stories. I love geography. I love geography. I love looking at maps, and just it was cool studying that. But
Mm-hmm.
now places on maps are where I have friends that call home, right? I have places where I have memories that I've made, and that's changed, right? Like I would definitely consider myself more of a global citizen now, just learning so much by traveling. The other thing I think changed, like I've always loved my country, but it really gave me even more of a love for the United States, just because I do think that we have the most beautiful country when it comes to landscape. It's stunning. It's amazing. But I think it's also challenged me with different thoughts on like controversial in Texas, but like, gun control. Like, why do we need semi-automatic rifles, right? And so it's just been interesting that some of my perspective on some of those things have changed as well. But yeah, the biggest thing is just those dots on a map are now they mean so much more.
They're real, they're personal now.
Exactly.
So I'm curious, since you brought up the gun thing, when you travel and you say, I'm from America, what do people usually associate you with?
Trump and guns.
I
Yeah.
was curious because I've gotten all of those things. I've gotten guns, abortion, Trump, Biden, and Big Macs.
Yeah.
So,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's fun to see, not just for the United States, but like there's stereotypes for a lot of countries around the world, and some of them are true. And it's
Mm-hmm.
fun to meet citizens from those countries to like really pick their brain on, or meet the citizens in these countries while you're there, and to see if they live up to it or not. But yeah, I've had conversations. They were Where was I? I think I was in Lisbon, Portugal, and we were
Mm-hmm.
at a couch surfing meetup, and I met this fellow American, and politics came up, and we had different views. Listen, I'll admit it. I'll admit on the podcast. Back in 2016, I did vote for Trump because I thought
Okay.
like I thought we needed to shake up our politics a bit.
We did.
Here we are 8 years later, like wow, it's been a pretty wild ride. Like mugshot was hilarious, but at the time in my life, I grew up part of my life in St. Louis. Like I grew up in a conservative family. I think it's good to have like I said, when you talk to other cultures, it's fun to be challenged on your beliefs. I think it's
Yeah.
important. I think that's a part of traveling you should have. I met this
Mm-hmm.
girl, she was American. She voted for Hillary, and as soon as she heard that I voted for Trump, she's like, "I can't believe you do that. You ruin our country. I'm never talking to you again." Literally got up and left. I was like, "Are you like?"
Oh
And
my God.
like it's too bad for her because
Yeah.
it was not supposed to be. It was not even an aggressive conversation. Like
Mm-hmm.
you should learn from each other. It doesn't mean that you need to force your beliefs on anyone, but just you should be able to have those chats.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in that aspect, I really like. I don't know. It was interesting. In like politically, I think I'm different than most people that like quit their job. Like I was a businessman, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I would consider myself a successful businessman that quit his job to travel the world. I mean, like
Even better.
I became a free spirit, right? Most of these people are like they're free spirits from the beginning. You know what I mean? And so,
Yeah.
but that's been fun. Like, I learned to be a little bit more of a free spirit in this sense, like still planning way ahead, but like that's been
Mm-hmm.
cool to learn that part of life.
People are like prejudgmental before
Yeah,
they even get to know you.
right.
Um, I have even gotten in a habit of like if I connect with someone online or in person, and they say, "Where are you from?" I kind of refuse to tell them at first, and I want them to figure it out,
Oh,
or I
really?
just want them, yeah, because I've had some, if I immediately tell people I'm from the US, then they kind of have expressed like, oh, we have these opinions about the US. And so I don't know. I prefer people to get to know me,
Yeah.
and be civil and realize, hey, I really like this girl. She's cool to talk to. And then maybe later, when they realize I'm American, they're like, oh shit, I didn't think I liked America or
Hmm.
Americans. It actually happened when I was in Greece. I connected with a guy because I wanted to sail. And I was in Corfu, and he was in Aracosa because he was having transmission problems, and he was stuck out there because he needed to figure out how he was going to sail without transmission. Anyway,
Hmm.
I went to Corfu. He was from Romania, and basically sat on the boat with him for 5 days and just like helped with cleaning, cooking, and just keeping him company,
Yeah.
learning about the boat. And I remember him telling me, he was like, um, I don't really like America. I didn't really like Americans, but I don't know. I met you and you're pretty cool.
Hmm.
And so he reaches out to me and he's like, how you doing? When you come to Romania? And it was nice that such an experience completely changed his judgments
Yeah.
about Americans and prejudice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
But I think that's such a good thing to do. Like,
mhm.
for you to have that opportunity to I feel like I try to do that as well, as show people like Americans can be great people, right? Like,
Yeah.
and then we become friends, and then I take my gun out of my backpack and we all shoot in the air. No, I'm just kidding. We don't do that. But it's just like, no, break down those barriers, change those
Hmm.
perspectives, because the media, I will say, is so effed up that like
Yeah.
I was shocked at some of the people when I got sponsored to travel. Some of my friends were like, "Wait, you're leaving the country? You know you're probably gonna die, right?" It's like, oh my God, you're 60 years old. You believe that? Like, come on, man. So it's good to help challenge those stereotypes and for everyone to see there is so much good in the world. Don't let a couple bad people ruin your perspective on everyone, right? I mean, that doesn't go
Definitely.
just for Americans. That's every country, because there is good everywhere.
I like to say, you know, there are countries where the culture might not be the most compatible for me,
Mhm.
but I believe it's possible to become close friends with at least one person from every country.
Absolutely. No, 100%.
So it's
And
all about being civil.
couch surfing is the best way to do it, because those are very like-minded people that will help you learn those cultural differences. Like, you're headed to the Middle East, right? Aren't you going there
One day.
next soon?
One
Right, that's
day.
on your list. It's
Yeah.
gonna be different. It's gonna be very different for you. Like, I was very lucky as a male. It's not as I don't want to say the wrong word, but it's easier for males in Muslim countries than it is for females. And
Hmm.
so, like, yes, you should have those couch surfing connections, because it is good to know people and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, just, but it will be different. And like,
Yeah.
who's to say what way is right to live life? I think you need to figure out whatever makes you happy is the way you live. But like,
Hmm.
go, you should see it and like see what it's about. The Middle
Hmm.
East gets such a bad rap in the media. It had right with what's happening right now in Gaza and Israel, and what's happened back right with 9/11, everything. The Middle East has always been in the news in a negative light. It was
Hmm.
one of the friendliest parts of the world I've ever been to. The
Definitely.
hospitality, the amount of strangers that invited me to their home. I don't hide that I'm American. I'm very like I tell people I'm American, right? Like we're opposites in that aspect. Like I'm like, yeah,
Mhm.
stars and stripes, baby. Let's go. And it's not always great with everybody, but the majority of the people want to learn about our culture. And so in the
Mhm.
Middle East, I mean, you would have complete strangers feed you. They'll even offer you a bed in their home
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
because, they want to make sure you have a good time in their country. So I hope you go. And I hope you have a great experience there as well.
No, I would love to. I know the cuisine's amazing, and I know there is a bad rep for, um, I guess the touristic experience when you go there. But it's really their culture is more focused on hospitality towards people who they've developed a connection with.
Mhm.
So just like you can go to parts of the world and people are really cold at first, and then later they become friendly. In their own way, the Middle East is kind of like that. Um, it can be in worse ways, but whenever you develop a rapport with them, they're known for being like some of the warmest, kindest, most generous people.
Truly. Yeah.
So I actually, like, one of my first couch surfing experiences, and this isn't really like the Middle East, but was staying with a guy in Italy who was Pakistani, and the whole house of guys was Pakistani. So at first I was like scared because I was this young white American woman staying with a whole house of men who were from Pakistan. But that was actually a really amazing experience. The man was so generous. I didn't know this, but he didn't have an extra bed, so he just like cleaned his bed and gave me his bed and found another place to sleep. I don't know where he went to sleep.
Isn't that wild?
But
Like they literally will they'll
yeah,
even give you the clothes off your back if you need it. Like
yeah,
it's next level hospitality. And I think
it is next
there's
level.
other cultures that could learn from that to to be a bit more friendly. But it's what they're doing is just it's mind blowing how much they care.
It is. Yeah, their house was incredibly clean. Anytime I was like offering to, they were cooking me fresh food from scratch each time. I was like, let me help you. They're like, no, you're the guest. Like, let's take care. And it was just such a like amazing experience. I would absolutely do it. And, it just completely changed my perspective. I went in being afraid and came out like, I can't wait to go to that part of the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, where do you want to travel next? And do you think you'll ever decide to stop or?
Yeah, great question. Wow. The big three on my list are the I call them the three M's: the Maldives, the Marshall Islands, and Madagascar. I really want to go to those three really, really bad. Three countries I've never been to, and as a scuba diver, it'd be paradise. But right now, there's no plans to go there. That could change. Been back in the United States, taking care of some family stuff, but luckily we're getting a handle on that, and we're headed to Alaska in a few days. So I don't know when this will air, but hopefully I'll have my Northern Lights photos by then. We're chasing Northern Lights for a week. We'll be in Fairbanks, Alaska. So that's one of the last three states I haven't been to in my own country. So I've been to Alaska and then the Dakotas. So really stoked for that. I head to Australia in March, end of February through early April. And then I have plans to go to the Paris Olympics next summer. So that's the rough plans. There's still probably going to be a lot in between. Do I see myself ever stopping travel? Eventually, we'll have a home base.
Yeah.
Like we do want to have a family. The bucket list family did it really well, taking their kids around the world, but even they needed a home base. So yeah, eventually we'll slow down and have kids. But like, no, I'd love to travel every day for the rest of my life. I love it. There's nothing better.
Yeah. Yeah. Travel with the kids if you can. And I think it helps them learn so much about the way to behave in public. Like kids who are at home and never socialized versus kids who are brought out to travel behave very differently.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I'm a strong advocate for, I mean, I've never been a parent, but I can see why.
I'm in no rush, but like my kids they'll definitely be travelers. 100%. Yeah.
Absolutely. I found this lady online. I was trying to become a medical writer because I learned about this lady who was a medical writer and then bought a yacht. And so she had her family on the yacht and basically earned money as like a digital nomad, being a medical writer, living on a yacht, sailing around the world. And instead of like, so basically she homeschooled her kids instead of taking them to regular school.
Yeah.
And their experience was, catching fish for dinner and going to meet these tribes on islands. And that was their growing up. And like, it might be a little socially isolating to be on a ship for so long, but
wow.
I think that's really incredible.
How cool would that be? Yeah.
That would be so amazing. How has traveling changed, or your travels and experiencing different cultures changed the way that you connect with people? If it has.
Yeah, wow, good question. I think it's made it even easier to connect with people. When people find out you've been to their country, or even better, their city, and it's in a really remote part of the world, and you can talk about the drink that you had or the meal that you ate from their city, whoa, does that break
Mhm.
down the walls so fast, and you become friends very, very quickly. And
Mhm.
so I think as a people person, it's made it even easier to connect with people because I understand where they've come from and I can relate to their culture. So yeah, I think it makes it even easier to relate.
Yeah, that's a great point. I met a girl from, I think she was from Lithuania, and
Mhm.
I've never been there, but purely the fact that she said, I'm from Lithuania, and I could tell her exactly where that was on the map, she lit up and she was like, oh, people from Germany don't even know
Right.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a special moment.
Absolutely. Heck yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to ask you a question, and instead I want you to just think of something that you would really like to share and share it.
Wow. Something that I want to share. Guys, gals, people of the world, go travel. Step out of your comfort zone. There's so much this planet has to offer. We're so lucky to be born on planet Earth. Explore it as much as you can. Meet as many people as you can. Eat all the foods. Drink all the drinks. Try it all
Mhm.
because life is meant to be lived. For me personally, traveling makes me feel the most alive. And I wish everyone on the planet could feel the feelings you get from traveling. And so get on that flight, do it, book the trip. Don't be afraid to do it because it will truly change your life forever.
Absolutely. And go check out Brent's traveling page, Folan Finds, right?
Folan Finds or at Brent Folan or Folan Finds Wildlife if you like the animals. A lot of good stuff there. Oh, yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with me, Brent, and all of your time and sharing all of these amazing stories.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me and best of luck with the rest of this project.